Afternoon. Oh, let's close that. So today's stream we're going to be working on a PowerShell module which is basically going to act as, it will serve as a tool for organising secret Santas. So if you've never done it before, Secret Santa is basically where you have a group of friends or family or strangers on the internet where you all agree to participate. You basically draw out someone else's name from a hat and you buy a gift for that other person, and ideally you don't know who's buying your gift and the person that's receiving your gift doesn't know that you bought it for them. That's the ideal scenario. If it's anything like my family, everyone ends up knowing who's buying for who anyway. And this function, this script will, or this module will facilitate that sort of oversight as well. So I can't help but give my modules and scripts weird names. So instead of Secret Santa, we'll be calling this module Covert Kringle. And yeah, so all I've done so far is, other than name it, I've set up the data file for it and dropped in my default PowerShell module, my PSM1 file, which basically just loads everything up. So we're going to need a public and private folder, and that's not meant to be there. Let's try that again. That's better. So it seems like a weird place to start, but I'm going to start with getting some, or at least dealing with the participants themselves, generating objects to represent each person that's going to be taking part in our Secret Santa. So, to start with, actually, in my PSM1 file, I'm going to set up a script-wide variable. So what you'll note is, for starters, hopefully I spell participants right. I've got a spell checker installed, so hopefully that picks up anything blatantly wrong. So within a module, if you've got a script scoped variable, all of your functions within that module should be able to access it. So if I define this here, we can create a set of functions to manage the contents of this array. And that's what we're going to start with. So our first one will be add KK participant. That's getting very close to something else. I guess it would help if I actually gave that an extension, because then this sort of stuff will actually start working. is that escaping me at the moment? Sorry, I'm just pulling up what we did in the last live stream because the keyword for the commandlet binding is escaping me. And it is literally just commandlet binding. I was expecting that. Alright. Sorry, so starting from a blank slate there, so now we've got our skeleton of a function here. So we're defining a function. This is add KK participant. We've got the template there for some comment-based help and template there for our first parameter. So as far as the information we need for each of our participants, we're going to need at a minimum, we're going to need to know their name and how we're getting in touch with them. So I'm going to be assuming email, and that works for me as well for, in theory, text messages, because if I end up using this at work, we have access to an e-text service, so yeah, I'll be able to just plug in cell phone numbers and text out the pairings. So we need name, and I'm not going to care about first name versus last name or anything else. We'll literally just call it name. And it needs to be mandatory. I keep pressing the wrong button. Alright. So we've got name, we've got email, and this one's going to be a little bit weird. And this is a switch parameter which I'm going to call snitch. So I mentioned at the start our ideal scenario being no one knows any information except who they're buying their gift for. In some situations, a certain family member might demand to know who everyone is, and I'm going to name that person the snitch. So when we're adding a person in, we can designate them as the snitch, and when we end up going and creating all of our pairings for the Secret Santa, that person's going to get a report of what the outcome was. So this is going to be fairly simple. All we're doing is we're going to be creating PS custom objects, loading it up with the information we've got from here, and that isn't mandatory because it's a switch. So these switches, just to show an example of how we would use this. Normally, if we're calling this function, we would say Josh King for me, my email address, which whatever, and that would be fine. I could leave it as that, and the person would be marked as basically not being a snitch. if I wanted them to be a snitch, I add tab completion doesn't work there yet within itself. I just add dash snitch. How that manifests itself within the function itself is you can consider this to be a $snitch to be a Boolean value, and if you don't specify it, it is false. So basically that variable defaults to false. If you specify it, it's true. So in our case it's going to be really easy to work with because the property in our custom object is just going to be a Boolean value, true or false, so we can just pass it in directly. We don't need to do any logic around it at this stage. Oh, and before I forget, I'll drop the link to where this is going to be saved to into chat if you want to follow along. I'll be committing and shipping things up there as we finish a function. So let's get this wrapped up pretty quick. So our output is, well, we're not outputting an object. What we'll be doing is adding it to this array or list. First, I will get this running so that we can see the output and make sure it's what we expect it to be. So nice and simple, the name is name, email is email. So I typed that wrong. Right. And snitch equals snitch. And that's basically as complicated as that needs to get. Let me run this. And I forgot that I haven't run anything in this console with the C# extension installed. In fact, let me go and get rid of that because we don't need it. Okay, let's try that again. Right, now if we add, what we should see with this email is we should see the object itself dumped out to the prompt. And I'll just make sure. Cool. And if we specify the snitch switch, you can see false when not specified, true when it is specified. So that's outputting it to the command, to the prompt, but that's not what we want. So this is going to end up being added to this participants array. Now, once it's in there, in fact, when it gets in there, we won't be able to do anything with it without loading this up as part of the module. So we're going to have to start doing something a bit different for testing, but that's alright. And for the sake of brevity in this stream, I'm not going to worry about filling out the comment-based help. I can come back to that later. Just want to keep this list up to date as we go. Now I'm doubting myself with how that's meant to look. Let's have a look at another module somewhere. That's why it doesn't look right, because I put it in the complete wrong thing. There we go. So we've done our add. The inverse of that is remove. And we also want to be able to get our list of participants. So let's quickly whip those up. We've got remove. This one, we've also got get. So get's going to be nice and simple, so I'll do that one first. Now to be clear, I don't think I'm actually doing anything in here that requires the commandlet binding, but at some stage I might come through and do verbose output or something else, so I'll leave it there and deal with it later. This one has no parameters. Although I don't know if it's going to complain about not having the block there at all, but let's try it. And this is basically going to be our method for getting the script scoped variable out. One thing I hadn't considered with the removing is how I had planned this to happen was with unique names. That unfortunately would mean needing to put some more logic in here about making sure that the name's not already in there. The alternative is assigning a unique identifier, which then you would have to surface by using the get participant function, but I don't like that as much. So I think not in should do the trick. Because we can look at just the names. I think that should work. We'll have to test it obviously, but we can get there. So what I'm saying there is, if the name of supplied there is not in the current list of participants, add it to the participants, otherwise we need an error. Right, so now that that's unique, we've got this one here, which is remove. Now I'm going to have to do some playing around here to figure out the best way of sorting this out. Well, first of all, we're not going to need the name. Sorry, we're going to need nothing but the name. Right, let's try something out here. Alright, so in test we've got 3 names. If I want to remove one, there's a remove function. That's what I was afraid of. So what I might have to do, so what I'm going to have to do for this, because without making it an array list or something a bit more fancy, I think I need to basically set up a secondary array, add all of the participants that aren't the one I want to remove to it, and then overwrite the original array with the new array. So let's try. In fact, we can do a bit of testing with this one here. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright. So we're dealing with this array here. We want to get the members of that where I'll be nice and verbose with it, call it where object. So we might be able to do this nice and quick. And just right off the bat, the participants equals participants where the name isn't the name we specified up there. I'm not doing any like operators, so I can't accidentally wipe out everything. And I'm not doing any error checking at this stage. So now it probably makes a good idea to actually do some testing of this to make sure what we've got there works. Good. Cool. So when we load this module up, it starts with an empty array because the import of it generates a empty array. So the first thing we need to do is, well, actually, let's just first check that remove participant doesn't cause an error when it doesn't find something. And it shouldn't, because of basically if it doesn't find something, then there's nothing to remove. So yeah, it just keeps going. But if we add a participant, let's add a couple of people, which we can't because right. Get member. Oh, I think that when I used remove and reassigned the variable, I better stop Nightbot from deleting what it thinks are links. Sorry, I don't know the commands, so I'm doing this from the web page. Let me log in. In fact, let me just tell it to leave the channel. Can I? Well, that's what I'm thinking, but there's also, when I ran this, it reassigns the so when we, where is it? Sorry, it is in here. We define it as an array, or a collection at least here, but during that testing there, when I ran remove, it reassigns. And because there wasn't anything in there, I'm pretty sure it just turned it into a single object variable. Let me test that theory out. Yeah, see, so that works fine. It was when I did remove that it sort of stuffed things up a bit there. Yeah, so we're going to need to fix that. And it might be a case of actually specifically making it an array list rather than the shortcut that we've been using. But let's check if remove works. What I'm interested in seeing now, because it's a one item collection, is can I add Josh back in? No. So I think if we do go ahead and make it an array list, rather than what we've done, that might solve some issues. Where are you hiding over there? So if we make that an array list, doing this then becomes a slightly different matter. So let's make sure at least that bit still works. Have I forgotten there? Oh, right. That needs to be an instance of that object type. That's better. Sorry, there's John there. Cool. So we do need to suppress that output from this. Other than that, that part is working. So because it's an array list now, it's normally possible with an array list to just call .remove, but in order to do that we would need to rebuild the exact object or pull it out of, actually we can do it like that, name, because the name's unique, and actually let's confirm name is unique. Cool. And that didn't add them in twice, no. So, because name's unique, and we have this, in fact, I was planning on calling the function itself, but that's just completely not needed. In fact, let's just repurpose this. Dot remove That's complaining, but notice that it takes a while to catch up in here. So what this should do is we'll pick out the exact object as created here for the person we want removed, and then just call the remove function of the array list, which should get rid of it. There's probably a more efficient way to do that part of it, but this will do for now. Alright, quicker just to type it again. The problem with match is, I think, does match imply a regex match of some description, which then might allow the user to delete more than one entry at a time? And that wasn't auto-completing, so I think something's wrong there. Possibly just me mucking something up there. It's importing fine, what's the problem? Ah. Yeah, that's fair enough. What I might do, instead of trying to get... I think that's just a case of wrapping it in curly brackets, but instead we will pull the logic out. There's no need to save lines here. Yes, I really should either be editing this directly in here or automate that update, but I'll learn one day. So now if I remove Josh, no error, and I've just got John in there now. If I add Josh back in, no errors. If I try it a second time, I get an error. If I remove John, John's gone, good. Now the test case that was failing before is if I run that up front, add someone, remove someone. Basically I'm just trying to see if I can break this again, but I think by explicitly having it as a array list, that's basically solved all of those edge cases we would have had when just having it as a generic collection. Perfect. Now the only thing we haven't done is create a snitch. Now we've got 3 people, one of them's a snitch, good. So those are all in at least a working state. Let's get those up on GitHub. And while we were working on that, I thought of one more that we need, which is going to be very quick to, well, not need, but could be handy, is clear. This one's going to be really simple. It's literally just doing believe. Calling the clear method on it. No. Get over there. Alright, so we've got our list of participants. Then what we need to do is start. Well, I don't really want to break this down into too many subcomponents, but we do need to do, so at a high level, we need to match users, match participants, and then notify them of who they're buying a present for. So I think I'm going to split that into two functions. One is the matching, one being the notification. And so that means I want my pairings to be another variable. Now the reason why I'm doing it this way is because when I do the notify, I'm going to also pull from this pairings and basically send the rule list to our snitch if we have any. Yep. So as far as namings, go to the handy list of approved verbs for PowerShell. So what we're doing is I'm leaning towards just choosing start, so it'll be start KK pairing. Because basically we run that, it just runs through everyone and we come out the other end with the pairings. It's rename, reset, search, no. It's not compare. No. Yeah, I'm just going to use start. So the two main rules in this are going to be you can't draw yourself. So I can't buy myself a Christmas present. And once someone's out of the pool, no one else can choose them. It's probably not the best way of phrasing that, but it'll do the job. So there's no parameters on this. In fact, let me just double check that there were no parameters on that one either. Nope, cool. So we're going to be going through everyone in our participants list. That works. So instead of handling this in yet another array list, that's good. And if I could select the right line, that would be even better. That's going to start as null because that'll make it easier to work with. And that gives us an interesting possibility later of going one step above having a snitch, get the mouth around my words, is outright rigging it by at creation time telling them this person is going to be matched with that person. I'm not too worried about people. Ooh, I wonder. Because it'll get it. Sorry, I was just about to thinking with the scoping of these variables, the end user wouldn't be able to see the pairings anyway, except that it would be exposed via the getKK participant. You're right. So if we go back to doing that like you suggested and go in here and do paired, this becomes false. Good catch. So now we need to... Well, here's... Is it possible to randomize the order of an array list? Yeah, thank you for popping by. The VOD will be up right away, so feel free to watch the rest if so inclined, but hopefully we'll get this finished up pretty quickly. I think we'll keep this nice and simple, the randomization. PowerShell's got, and I'm not sure what version it showed up in, but there is the get random. I don't think that's very reliable in this case. Sorry, just had to stop for a drink there. Right. So, we need to randomize an array for... Let's have a play with this. I realise now that this might not be the best way to look at this. Actually, how's VS Codes? Alright, let's just crack into this. We could... Actually, we could do this at creation time of each of our participants, creating a sort key of sorts. This is interesting, and I'm thinking of potentially doing it with a GUID. I think for us, but I can use it for sorting. What I'm thinking of is generating a GUID when we create a participant and having it as a property in there. And then just sorting the array based on that, not the full GUID, because I don't think there's anything to gain from that. That's probably taking it a step too far. But it would make it a number, I believe. Humour me for a moment, but I think if we do something like that, let's give that a shot. We might need to do that in here. Yeah, using the new random will allow us to get a smaller, like a number of humans going to be more accepting of. Oh. I forget how these work, but VS Code doesn't. Now what's the difference between random and random number generator? I guess I should have probably read that. Why didn't it like my... So why didn't it like it here? Sorry, up here. I imagine that might have been a fancy comma thanks to YouTube. Possibly. Anyway, it works. Yeah, I think that's a less convoluted way to go about it. So we need to sort it on that sort key. Now before we go much further, let's make sure that that actually works. So we'll just go straight to putting that out there. Giving it a shot. So, this is not a good example because they're already in the correct order. Let's add some more people then. Keep the form the same. Cool. So if this works, what we should see is it pop out Wendy, Josh, Oliver, then John. And of course, there's something wrong with that function. Alright, it doesn't like those when it doesn't need it. Yep. Let's make sure it imports this time. So we got Wendy, Josh, John, Oliver. 77, 78, 17. Cool. So if this works, it should come out. Oh, I haven't added it to exported functions yet. Does that matter? It does. Well, that's a pain. Sorry, clear up some of this stuff that I don't need to see anymore. Goodbye, goodbye. Wendy, Josh, John. I should probably just put all this in a text file so I don't need to keep doing this, but here we go. So it was inputted in that order. Wendy, Josh, John, Oliver. 44, 44, 43, 43, 3, 52. Now we've got 3, 43, 43, 52. That looks like a sorted order to me. So with that being in the right order, and I'm not that worried about the edge cases where, well, it's not even an edge case when it happened on literally our second test, but when we've got the same sort key on two objects, I'm not that worried. It's Secret Santa at the end of the day. So now we need a list of potential giftees. Which are basically yeah, I was hoping to keep it fairly acceptable to a random human, but adding a 0 to is not going to hurt them. Oh, and actually I wanted to go in there. So we've got paired, but that doesn't necessarily tell me everything that I need to know. So I need to know... Actually, yes it does. Because we're going to be working through this list in order. Yep, alright. Sorry, had a brain fart there. So the first thing is we don't want to be gifting to ourselves. So in theory, we want someone out of, like, our potential giftees are going to be from the participants, as long as it's not the current person and they also haven't been paired. And if I could remember what I had actually called that, it is just paired. That would help. So I'm going to entrust this to getRandom, which I believe can take input from the pipeline. I guess we should double check that. So we end up with a pairing. We end up with a pairing that's going to be two users, two objects. I'm going to do this the clunky way, because I'm sure there's a better way to do it, but so the buyer is person, the receiver, and I'm just sneakily checking spelling. And then we also need to mark our giftee as having been paired. Yep. Which is there. Let's do it this way then. Is there a replace? Only... There isn't. So basically what I'm thinking about here is, how do I go about updating our giftee to say that they've now been paired up? I guess we can add our pairing in there now regardless, but yeah, but what I need to do is, because I'm dealing with it here, if I if I address it as giftee, am I addressing that actual instance in memory? Guess there's one way to find out, and that's just to do it. I think then we can at least let's pop a quick get pairing in there as well, so we can at least see the output of that. I thought we ended up getting rid of that. Alright, so our participants are all leaning towards the same region-ish, but that's alright. If we do start pairing, finished a lot quicker than I expected it to for some reason, but okay. Our pairings, Oliver, John, Josh, Wendy. Well, the good news is we didn't end up with any multiples over here, which is a good start. We don't have anyone gifting to themselves, which is a good start. I believe because of how we've got this set up at the moment, yeah, that that's going to become an error. Which then makes me think, every time we do a new pairing, just going to say, every time we run start KK pairing, we might want to clear or initialize a new array list, but that's not going to help us because we're changing the objects themselves. So if we were to run it again, no one would get paired with anyone. So the issue we just had there was because there was no potential gifties, so I'll account for that possibility. For now, I'm just going to make it error out if you try running it a second time. Also, one thing we haven't considered is the possibility of there being an odd number of participants, and we haven't tested for that yet. Or what we do in that case. For now, we'll just write an all-encompassing thing here. No possible pairings. I'm not putting any variables in this, so single quotes. So I think one thing I wanted to do in here was if there was an odd man out, I still want them added to the pairings. But the gifty is going to be null. And then it can be up to a human to figure out what they do with that extra person, whether the organizer picks them up as a second person or whatever. Not there. Right, actually, let's actually import this module first up and make sure I haven't marked anything up. Alright, now we've got an odd number. We obviously have no pairings yet. That's not what I was meant to run. Participants. We have Wendy, Josh, John, Oliver, Paul. We've got our pairings. Did I actually put a 2, 3, 4, 5? Yes. 1, 2. Oh. Huh. That's right, because it's a giant circle, there never is the issue of having an odd person. So, ignore me. If I had a dirt counter, that would definitely be going on it. Which means this whole thing here is irrelevant. Right, so unfortunately, yeah, well that one there was an imagined edge case of my own imagination, because that one just doesn't exist. But at any rate, we've been going for an hour and a half here, and unfortunately it looks like there's a fair amount more work to do on this, so we might need to do a part 2. So I think here's a good time to stop for today, and I'll pick up and finish this off on my next stream. Yeah, so next time we'll be looking at actually sending out notifications to everyone, implementing our backdoor of sorts for our snitch. And yeah, doing some thorough testing for looking at the edge cases. And probably doing something other than just throwing a warning if you try and run it twice, like resetting the pairings. We might even create a private function for that. I will chuck all of this up into the GitHub repo. Cool. So that's me for today. I'll be scheduling another live stream soon, likely to be Tuesday or Wednesday morning, New Zealand time. So Monday or Tuesday night in America. Yeah, and we'll be aiming to finish this off. So I'll see you then if you can come by, and feel free to hit me up in the comments or on Twitter or anything, and yeah, I'll see you around. Have a good one.